Estelle Getty was born Estelle Scher on July 25, 1923, on the Lower East Side of Manhattan to Polish immigrants. As a child, her parents would take her to the movies and 5-act vaudeville shows, where she realized that this is what she wanted to do with her life. "I found my world," Estelle would say later in her 1988 memoir. At the age of 5, she would start studying singing, dancing, and dramatics. As an adult, she worked as a secretary, but would go on auditions at community theaters during her lunchtime. She would act in several neighborhood theaters and regional houses, but never gave up the hope that she would rise to the Broadway theater one day. In 1947, she would marry Arthur Gettleman, who would work at Estelle's father's glass business and one day take over. They would have 2 sons, Carl and Barry. Now that she added wife and mother to her long list of duties, each day she would work at her secretarial job, audition for stage parts, go home to meet her children who were coming home from school, make dinner for the family, and act in the evenings. Estelle had passion for her career as well as the responsibilities to her family she loved above all. Once her children were grown, she would spend more time acting on stage. In 1978, she saw The Eternal Stud, which was the first part of what would become the Torch Song Trilogy. She went backstage to meet the writer and star of the play, Harvey Fierstein. Estelle would later say in an interview that she told Mr. Fierstein that if he ever wrote a play with a mother in it, to give the role to her. By this time, many of the roles she was getting were of mothers. Mr. Fierstein ended up doing just what she asked, and Estelle was given the mother role in Widows and Children First, which would be the final segment of the Torch Song Trilogy. For the 1970s, the Torch Song Trilogy dealt with homosexuality and cross-dressing, and challenged the viewpoint and tolerance of its straight audience. This role was the turning point in Estelle's life and career. She received rave reviews, and the play would move from the off-Broadway theater La Mama to the Actors Playhouse in Greenwich Village, and then to the Broadway stage. During the 1980s, Estelle would continue to be part of the Torch Song Trilogy cast as it toured the country. The last stop of the tour was in Los Angeles, and Estelle, along with her manager, would try to break into the film and television world. Producers were casting for a new sitcom called The Golden Girls, and were impressed by Estelle in the stage play, and wanted her to audition for the show. They were a bit wary as to if the 61-year-old Estelle could play an 81-year-old character. Her manager would dress her in a wig and matronly clothes for the audition, and Estelle would land the part. She would win an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series in 1988. Being part of this iconic show would make Estelle's Sophia one of the most recognized characters of the 1980s. During her years on Golden Girls, Estelle lived on the West Coast. Her husband Arthur had no interest in moving to Los Angeles, so he stayed in New York running the glass business. They remained married for the rest of their lives. They still loved each other very much, and the arrangement worked for both. When B. Arthur decided to leave the show, Estelle, Betty White, and Rue McClanahan would bring their characters to the spin-off called The Golden Palace. Estelle would be offered roles in such movies as Mask, Mannequin, $1 Million Kid, and Stuart Little. The Golden Girls was loved by people from all walks of life, but especially held dear to the LGBTQ community. Over the several seasons of the show, we would see how each character addressed issues of homosexuality and AIDS. They brought affirmation and dignity to the lives of this community, both on television and in their private lives. Estelle would say that in her whole show business life, the majority of her friends were gay, and a lot of them died from AIDS. Estelle could be counted on to raise money and awareness for the AIDS epidemic. Besides losing friends to AIDS, she would lose her own nephew Stephen to the disease, and cared for him in his final stages of AIDS. Like her character Sophia, as well as the maternal figure she played on stage, Estelle was a mother to all who knew her. In 2001, Estelle retired from the stage, television, and screen. She had been dealing with the effects of Lewy body dementia, a progressive brain disease. She would pass away on July 22, 2008, a few days shy of her 85th birthday. She's buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Estelle Getty was the epitome of strength, perseverance, and love. Thank you, Estelle, for allowing all of us to be your friend.